the first webinar series. Also, a big thanks to our sponsor, Calgon Carbon, for their sponsor of the entire WQRF Summer School series. We're grateful for their support and all of our WQRF contributors, and many of whom are actually on our call today. We appreciate your support of our mission. As always, we'll make sure to send out the recording, usually within 48 hours of the conclusion of the webinar. Just give us a little time to get the recording edited and sent out your direction. But as always, you can always visit wqrf.org/webinar. And a lot of our recordings are already on there, but that's another place that you can always access some of the recordings. Speaking of our supporters, one of WQRF's most vocal supporters and champions is on the call today as our professor. Please welcome Richard Mest, and he will be offering today the Emerging Contaminants presentation, which is a repeat lecture, which we did actually feature as part of the WQA convention this past March in Orlando. Besides featuring great information, the session also references many WQRF resources, and we thought this would be a great way to also kick off our new contaminant map. So that conversation will follow Richard's emerging contaminant presentation. Please note, Richard actually references lots of different links throughout his presentation. So he will be navigating to some of those links, some of which are located on the EPA's website, some of which are located on WQRF's website. But Kayla has actually already put the list of all of those links in the chat feature. So it's a PDF document. You can kind of follow along if you've got multiple screens going, which I'm sure most of you do. You can go ahead and open up that PDF document and use that list of links as a reference as well. Additionally, just as a follow-up and as an FYI, along with the recording that you'll get from us via email, that document link will also be in there for you to use and file away for future reference. A little bit about Richard. Let me read his quick bio. He's the president of Master Water Conditioning Corporation, a manufacturer of water treatment products, services, and technical support for residential, commercial, and industrial applications. Master Water Conditioning is now a part of A.O. Smith Corporation, where Richard serves as the director of special programs. He is an active member of the Water Quality Association, where he serves as past president, and he is also on the WQRF Board of Directors and is a member of Water Systems Council, where he serves on the board of directors as the president. He is currently an active member of the Water Quality Association's Industry Research Committee, as well as the Government Affairs Committee, and he is an avid educator and also has performed seminars for water treatment related to trade associations, health departments, and even children's programs. He has written many technical articles on water treatment technology, and he has also received the Water Quality Association's Hall of Fame Award, the Lifetime Member Award, the Award of Merit, and the Key Award for his dedication to educating members of the water treatment industry. And finally, he is also recognized as one of WQRF's Warriors for Water. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Richard.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to our summer school. I was thinking of wearing a bathing suit and some sunglasses, but I figured since they called me a temporary professor, I should look that part. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to go through a lot of information. And as Callie's already shared, this presentation is really your journey into emerging contaminants with tremendous link resources to the internet, EPA driven, USGS driven, and WQRF driven. So I'm going to go through a lot. And after this, we'll be available to surgically look at any of these topics in more detail. So if you would like to do that, just let WQRF know and we can arrange it. So emerging contaminants, what are they? Sometimes chemicals that had not previously been detected are discovered in the water supply. These chemicals are known as contaminants of emerging concern or simply emerging contaminants. Emerging contaminants are important because the risk they pose to human health and the environment is not yet fully understood. Some that you might have heard about: pharmaceuticals, personal care products, endocrine disruptor compounds are among the prime examples of emerging contaminants. And as you know, that 90% of oral drugs pass through the human body and end up in the water supply. We've had other things added to emerging contaminants too, and we're going to go through that list. Some of them being microplastics, manganese, and also the PFAS family of chemicals. Should I be concerned? With advances in testing and health research, experts are learning of new potential dangers in our drinking water. In many cases, the possible harms are not yet fully known. So as water treatment professionals, we analyze a lot of waters. And we're very accustomed to using measurements in grains per gallon or milligrams per liter, parts per million. And then we were introduced to parts per billion because analytical instruments could test finer particles, finer size contaminants. A part per million to a part per billion is 1,000 times different, to give you a perspective. We now test in the parts per trillion, which is 1,000 times smaller than a part per billion. And to give you an idea of a part per trillion, it's like finding a postage stamp on the ground in the great state of Texas. We're talking about things that are very, very, very small. And as analytical equipment continues to improve, knowing that water is the universal solvent and loves to consume contaminants, we're in a great profession, and you're going to see more contaminants emerge. Yes, Kayla.
Apologies, that was the wrong button.
Oh, okay. No worries. I saw your hand go up. So how do I know if emerging contaminants are in the water supply? You need a professional like the people on this call and state laboratories that are certified to determine if the contaminant's there. These aren't contaminants that you'll get a test kit out typically and do an in-field test. This is something where you need to reach out to a certified laboratory for assistance. And then how can I prevent them? By buying certified products that have gone through the NSF ANSI process, and we have plenty of those available. But also understand sometimes contaminants emerge that are so critical to be taken care of that the ANSI process has not caught up to it. And we sort of are living through that real time in the world of PFAS. So when did this all start? It all started on December 16th, 1974, when President Gerald Ford signed into law the Safe Drinking Water Act. And now I'm going to go to my first link. This is a link that will give you all kinds of background information, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. I just want to show you it. So it talks about the regulation, talks about the history, talks about compliance. And this would be a great resource for you and your team as you grow your business opportunity. One of the things that came out of the Safe Drinking Water Act that I greatly applaud is that we all of a sudden had to be responsible to our constituents on a public water supply. So this is an EPA press release from June 25, 1977. And we highlight a novel aspect of the law requires utilities to notify consumers if the health standards or sampling requirements are not being met. Before this, we really didn't have to do that. Now we do. And it was as quoted in this press release. In the future, consumers will know when their water supply systems encounter problems, and they can help determine solutions, including how to pay for the improvements. So it incorporates stakeholder involvement in the process. Currently, we have over 90 contaminants that are regulated through the Safe Drinking Water Act. Microorganisms, which also includes turbidity, disinfection byproducts, disinfectants, inorganic contaminants, organic contaminants, radionuclides, and now we have the most recent PFAS class of chemicals. I wanted to share the journey. As I do a lot of outreach, I was hearing acronyms that just didn't make sense to me. So that really was the premise for me to create this presentation. I wanted to share what I learned, and what I learned was the emerging contaminant roadmap. This roadmap is critical for a water treatment professional. It's going to guide you into the next PFAS class of chemicals that will be promulgated to an MCL. It will give you documentation to help you make decisions on what products you should be looking at, what technologies are in that are going to be needed today and more so in the future. and it'll help train your team so they can help your consumer, be it a consumer in a home, a consumer in a factory, or a consumer in an industrial application. So there are multiple journeys we're going to take, and we're going to stop at each one of these. The first one is a CCL. It's a contaminant candidate list. There's a process that the EPA goes through where they create a list of contaminants that are really emerging contaminants of concern. From that list, they then vet a sub-list to monitor. So the UCMR is the EPA's process to actually determine the presence of those contaminants in the public water space. And that's the unregulated contaminant monitoring rule. From that, the process mandates that the EPA take a minimum of 5 contaminants that have been identified, analyze that data, and then consider promulgating a regulation for the contaminant to an MCL. Once an MCL is created, the next stop is enforcement and management of the MCL that the EPA relies on the states to do. Through the EPA regulation, through the Safe Drinking Water Act, there is a PNR, public notification rule, where, as a press release stated, the public water system has to notify a constituent of a problem. And then lastly, through the legislation, once a year, the public water system has to provide a CCR, a Consumer Confidence Report, which is a snapshot of what that public water system has been providing. So this is the roadmap: CCL, UCMR, promulgation, enforcement, PNR, CCR. Emerging. What an opportunity. So the first part of the roadmap is going to be our CCL stop. The drinking water contaminant candidate list is identified every 5 years. So this roadmap never stops. So every 5, sometimes 6 years, that the EPA will create a CCL. And I'm going to take you to that link now. This is an amazing link that we can spend days on. But again, this is something that you should definitely bookmark. As you can see listed here, there's a candidate list 6 that on April 19th, 2023, the submission window officially closed. So currently, we have gone through 5 different CCLs. Within this website, you can find basic information about the CCL, and I'll click there. And you can drop down into the definition of a CCL and what happens with a CCL. And I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just wanted to show the relevance of this link. Out of the 5 CCLs, 1998 was the first, and that CCL1 had 60 candidates of contaminants on it. 2005, CCL2 had 51 candidates. 2008, CCL3 had 116. 2016, CCL4 had 109. 2021, CCL5 had 78. And we're currently developing the CCL6, and they're vetting that list now. And the assumption is it'll be sometime around 2026. The list typically includes classes of contaminants such as pesticides, disinfection byproducts, chemicals used in commerce, waterborne pathogens, pharmaceuticals, and biological toxins. That's right, 414 contaminants, and we're still going. Think about this. Emerging contaminants are about opportunity. Water loves to consume. It loves to consume contaminants. And we continue to add more contaminants to the potential for water to consume. Right now, we regulate over 90 with MCLs, but we've already looked at 414, and the list never ends. Welcome, UCMR. Let the water testing begin. The second stop on our emerging contaminant journey, UCMR. The UCMR was amended in 1996, Section 2021 of Infrastructure of 2018 updated. And what it does, it establishes a program to monitor for priority unregulated contaminants in drinking water every 5 years. Remember, those contaminants come from the CCL, the previous CCL. Monitoring all large public water systems serving greater than 10,000 people. Monitoring all small public water systems serving between 3,300 and 10,000 people, and a representative sample of small public water systems serving fewer than 3,300 people. Storing the analytical results at the National Contaminant Occurrence database. I'm going to take you to the UCMR website. The UCMR website, again, is one of those websites where you can spend a lot of time. If you want to know what the next PFAS chemical is, you find it here. You'll find a list from UCMR 1 to UCMR 5. And we can go all through this, and you can take data, and it talks about the rule, shares what I had just shared about the sampling. And again, the purpose of the UCMR is to understand the prevalence of the contaminant in public water, and that then helps the next phase of this journey. So UCMR, number 1 was 26 contaminants. Then number 2 was 25 contaminants. Number 3, 4, and 5 were 30 contaminants each. That's a whopping 141. So remember the first list of 414, the CCL? 34% of the CCL contaminants have made it to the UCMR, which is huge for us and our industry and for people to be protected from contaminants that are new. Now we're going to stop at the analysis of the data and then potential promulgation of an MCL. This is called regulatory determination. The law requires EPA to make regulatory determination for at least 5 contaminants from the most recent CCL within 5 years after the completion of the previous round of regulatory determinations. It's important to note that EPA is not limited to making regulatory determinations for only those contaminants on the CCL. The agency can also decide to regulate other unregulated contaminants if information becomes available showing that a specific contaminant presents a public health risk in drinking water. There have been 4 regulatory determinations to date based on CCL 1 through 4. I'm going to take you there. This lists all of the regulatory determinations, and I just want to show you the list. That's the list of the contaminants that were on the first one. And I think we'll all see a contaminant that we've heard a lot about recently, manganese. Manganese is from the very first. And we also see common ones like sodium and sulfate. So again, this is a distilled list that then the EPA says there's enough information from the CCL driven by the UCMR to say, you know what, I think we should dig deeper into this. And then they go through a review to determine if there's value in regulating that contaminant. Out of that list, there have been a total of 33 contaminants now distilled. So 414 distilled to 33. Out of that, there were no contaminants that required promulgation action to an MCL for the first and the second. But on the third, they identified strontium as a radionuclide of concern. And then most recently, PFOS and PFOA from the determination 4. So out of those 33, we distilled it down to 3. Again, understanding what this journey is will really help us all as water treatment professionals better understand the treatment technologies, the efficacy of products that we currently sell, and to start learning more and get our knowledge base up to speed about these emerging contaminants, because you never know when they will become an MCL. The National Contaminant Occurrence Database. Do I really have to look? I'm going to take you there right now. And this database is another amazing location for you to take a look at contaminant occurrence. So you can see unregulated, the UCMR rule all the way 1 to 5. And you can also take a look at different reviews and occurrence data. And then literally right here, if you click on store it, you can actually get the data. So if you want to download Excels that show you the water quality, the analytes that were tested, it's right here. Again, we could spend a lot of time on this, but again, as part of this journey, I wanted to share some important links that I think will make a huge difference for you and your customers. Now we're going to head to the EPA's Department of Drinking Water and Groundwater. This is another really great site. So as you can see, PFAS, the primary standard, talking about lead copper rule, and then they're also looking at the bipartisan infrastructure law. Within this, you can take a look at things like annual quality water reports. You can look at regulated contaminants. You can do laboratory search. And my favorite is right here. You know, as professionals in the industry, we do more than just commerce. We make water great for people, and we make it the right quality at the right time, at the right place for the right purpose. But we also give back a lot. And we also like to educate consumers, especially newer consumers. Callie, do you need me?
Sorry, that button keeps moving on me. I apologize.
No worries. This is one of my favorite sites. So when you're looking to do something for your community, the EPA has something called Thurston, and they have learning modules that you can download, and you can go to your local school and you can do a really fun, small water festival in a box. And they have it from kindergarten up through 12th grade. And I just want to share the wacky water of Thurston. And I'm going to try and do this slow, but this is so cool. And again, maybe I could do a seminar on this someday, but Thurston's Wacky Water Adventure, and talking about who Thurston is, talking about the phases of water for the kids. And then it actually takes them through treatment and what a treatment plant does, where water comes from. So again, this is an amazing tool for you, not only to help yourself, but to give back to your community. Now we're at the public notification rule of our journey. So we've done CCL, UCMR, we analyzed the data, we talked about MCLs. Now we're going to the notification. So part of the Safe Drinking Water Act created a notification program. And what this states is that notices must be sent within 24 hours, 30 days, or 1 year, depending on the tier of the contaminant to which a violation is assigned. The clock for notification starts when the public water system learns of the violation. This is just an example when there is a microbial outbreak. Obviously, you want that notice to go out swiftly, so within 24 hours. And I shared a link here that takes you to the public notification rule. So if you want to learn more about that, you want to understand some of the nuances of it, this is a great website. Now, lastly, on the emerging contaminant journey is CCR, Consumer Confidence Report. Once a year, the EPA mandates that every public water system do a snapshot of water analytes so consumers understand with a broad brushstroke what they've been seeing in concentration in their water supply. And here's the link to that. This is a really great site that you can get very specific to a region on. So understanding what the CCR is in your market area is huge. And you can find it by clicking here. And there's a map. So you can distill it down to the state, you can distill it down to the water system. So you find the name of the water system and you can download the information. If you're a constituent of that public water system, it gets sent to you by email or USPS, but you also have access to it by coming to this website. Again, incredible tool to track emerging contaminants, to track what's actually in the water supply today. So far what we shared was CCL, UCMR, promulgation, PNR, CCR. And the journey starts all over again every 5 years. Now, I just want to bring in the lead and copper rule because this is something that's near and dear to, I think, everyone's heart that's participating today and in the industry. And I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but I want you to focus on the year. EPA established the lead and copper rule in 1991. 1991. We created a level at 15 parts per billion, checking for corrosion control. And the idea was that we would solve the lead problem really, really quick. Lead, didn't we talk about that 32 years ago and now going on 33 years ago? And have we figured it out? I don't think so. The point of this is here. Let's have a level set and put contaminants like lead and the current class of emerging contaminants into perspective. Change can be slow. Look at emerging contaminants. The journey is fixed every 5 years, but what we do with that knowledge can take some time. Just like lead, we haven't solved it yet, and we've been with it for 32 years since the line was put in the sand. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So don't get disenchanted in today's world of PFAS, where this isn't going to happen right now with the regulation. It's 5 years out for the largest public water systems to comply. So it's going to take time to get this down to the consumer level. The interest is there by all means. Emerging contaminants that then themselves, as well as emerging contaminants like PFAS that become an MCL, there's great interest. We need to talk about it because we have ways to solve that problem or reduce the contaminant for people. We need to talk about it. But understand, if you wait for the regulation to kick in, it's going to be a marathon. Now I want to take you to some WQRF resources. And this video was done after the CCL4. And I'm going to try and control volume. So if it's too loud on your end, you'll have to control that. And let's see what happens.
From 1971 to 2014, there have been only 105 documented waterborne outbreaks from chemical contaminants, resulting in about 5,000 illness cases and 6 documented deaths. But health effects from chemical exposures are not always immediately known. Long-term illness such as cancer and other chronic diseases may manifest over time. Combined exposure effects are another concern. We are not very efficient at studying mixed contaminant exposures and associated health outcomes that may manifest decades later. Subtle changes in childhood development and wellness indicators may be linked to repeated exposures to environmental toxicants that are found in water and air that we're exposed throughout our lifetime. Up to 400 major chemicals contaminate the world's rivers, and over 70,000 different chemical substances are currently in use. In the United States, 700 different chemicals have been detected in drinking water, and about 129 of those are considered highly toxic, but the levels we're exposed to are usually very low. The Environmental Protection Agency has set legal limits on over 90 contaminants in drinking water. Examples of contaminants regulated under the 1974 Safe Drinking Water Act include arsenic, benzene, lead, and nitrates. For many carcinogens, including arsenic, there is no safe level in water. Any concentration can initiate harmful effects in humans, but complete elimination of the hazard is sometimes not reasonably feasible in some impacted regions. POU devices are capable of removing up to 99% of arsenic from drinking water supplies, and they offer an option for reducing exposures beyond the capacity of many municipal treatment facilities. Because arsenic is also naturally occurring in soil and rocks throughout the U.S., private groundwater supplies that are not monitored and treated may pose the greatest exposure risk. Many more known and potential hazards are not formally regulated. Emerging contaminant classes include pharmaceutical compounds, endocrine disrupting compounds, pesticides, detergents, fire retardants, and disinfectants. Beginning in 1998, the EPA formed the Contaminant Candidate List, or CCL. This list identifies unregulated but priority contaminants where more research and monitoring are needed, and this would be to develop future guidance or regulation. The list is updated about every 5 years. Contaminants such as PFAS, the forever chemicals, chromium-6, and disinfection byproducts are all on the most recent CCL list. This list includes 97 chemicals and 12 microbes. For many people, these risks are not acceptable, and the controlled treatment at the point of use provides an added assurance of a final barrier that's designed to improve water quality, taste, and health.
I think that is such an incredible video, and that's something that you can incorporate into your presentations. Another study that we've done is understanding public awareness and decision-making on using water treatment devices. I'm showing this one because I wanted to show the top 5 emerging contaminants for public awareness: pesticides, herbicides, pharmaceuticals, microplastics, personal care products, and of course, our friend PFAS. I'm now going to take you to protecting public health through predictive modeling, and this is a 1-minute video, and the music's great, so if you want to dance along, you just go for it. We'll be sharing more of those videos later. Again, just trying to show you your toolbox that WQRF provides you to make a difference with your company as well as your consumers. Emerging contaminants. They require your most powerful magnifying glass. This isn't iron that creates staining. This isn't hardness, even though it's important to improve energy savings when you heat water and the save soap and all the benefits of soft water or hardness reduction. Hydrogen sulfide, we take smells, we reduce smells from water. But when it comes to emerging contaminants, we really have to be careful. Emerging contaminants are health effects. It's a game changer. We have to understand more than anyone else that they come in different shapes, sizes, they have different personalities, different strengths, different weaknesses, and they have levels of tenacity. It's our job to understand all the nuances of every contaminant and also what those contaminants do when they're in the soup of their peers. We also have to understand how those contaminants impact someone's health. Is it topical, meaning surface on my skin? Is it ingestion, meaning when I drink it? Is it inhalation? So when I aspirate the water with a garden hose nozzle or in the shower or even washing my hands. Most of these are regulated by an MCL or a maximum contaminant level goal. But as PFAS showed us that you can have a contaminant that gets so charged in the marketplace that we need to react ahead of maybe an MCL. As you journey into treating emerging contaminants, a detailed water analysis is critical. It identifies the problem or problems. It's an independent voice when you use a third-party certified lab. It's important that you understand that a consumer needs to see someone else's word for it, not just yours. And most of the time with emerging contaminants, you don't have the capability to do testing in the field to the concentrations that they're monitoring in parts per billion or parts per trillion. Emerging contaminants need you at the top of your game. Concentrate and get serious. Treatment system design, installation, and maintenance plans are critical for success. This isn't a device that you install and leave. This is a device that you install and you continue to nurture with your customer, be it a homeowner, be it a school, or be it a factory. It doesn't matter. When you're dealing with health concerns with emerging contaminants or primary contaminants that already have an MCL or MCLG, we need to make sure that we not only design it well and install it well by following all the pertinent codes, but maintaining it. If we don't maintain it, they don't get protection. Technologies. I want to spend a little bit of time on this, and I'm being careful of my time here. The technologies that you're seeing right now, activated carbon media, GAC, membrane technology, ion exchange, selective medias, they're all tools that you currently have. But don't make a mistake. Don't think that because you're accustomed to an activated carbon media performing a certain way for dechlorination or reducing chloramine, that is going to react the same for a volatile chemical or an emerging contaminant. Contaminants are all different tenacity, shape, and size. Some of them love the water supply and don't want to leave the solution. Some of them really don't care and will leave immediately. When it comes to the media, we have to know what shape of media. Is it large? Is it sharp-edged? Is it pulverized to powder? What's the size? And what source is it? There are multiple sources of GAC or carbon, from coal to wood to coconut shells and to others. So when your manufacturer says these are the limits to the system, you have to listen because it takes time for these contaminants to be reduced. Ion exchange, the same thing. It's different ion selectivity depending on the contaminant to the resins or the ion exchange medias that you're selecting. There are different sizes of those medias and there are different base construction of those medias. So you really have to understand what they do. A water softener reducing hardness is not going to react the same for another contaminant. And all because it's a resin-based for hardness reduction and you're going to use a resin base for arsenic reduction, it doesn't mean that it works identically the same. It takes probably more time. Membrane technology, reverse osmosis, we have others, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, microfiltration. Be open to these technologies as the manufacturers bring you solutions, embrace them. But understand that there's probably a pre-treatment requirement. And then selective medias. We have metal-based alloys. We have from manganese to iron to brass to you name it. There are different oxides available. There are different medias available that are very, very selective. Some of them have specific coatings. Some of those have particular sizes. Again, they're selective for a reason, and make sure you understand everything about it. So the technology classes won't seem different, but the way you harness that technology is totally different. I'm not going to take you to this site. You have the link. Make sure that you always use third-party certified products for a solution. Talking about treatment, let's talk about emerging contaminants and highlighting the efficacy of our industry-certified products and people. Legislators and regulators are noticing, and guess what? There's positive change. And I don't know why that's not coming up there. So I'm going to go back here for a minute, a treatment train. And there's supposed to be a really cool train there. But I want to talk about treatment trains. So the previous slide, I mentioned about time. So when you're dealing with health effects, you want redundancy. So you might have a technology that you need a primary filter or exchanger and a backup sequentially. So it's not going to be one magic box that solves everything. You will have train cars in sequence. And if you currently install under-sink reverse osmosis systems, you have 4 to 5 train cars right now. So as technology and innovation is presented to you as decision makers, embrace the fact that you're going to have to look at this differently. You have to do maintenance contracts. You have to understand the prerequisite of pre-treatment. You have to understand that empty bed contact time matters and that rejection on membranes will vary from one contaminant to the other, and that a supercontaminant might react differently than a contaminant on its own, and that treatment trains are part of the process. Don't avoid them, embrace them. And I want to watch my time, and I'm going to end with 2 videos. This one is our friend PFAS from the Emerging Contaminant Removal. And lastly, I want to show an incredible toolkit that WQRF put together for all of us. So as we finish this, I thank you very much for your attention. I'm honored to be your peer, and I look forward to all of us locking arms and making a difference for everyone that's searching for cleaner water. Emerging, it's all about the opportunity, and WQRF is here to help. We've got your back. And with that, Callie, take it away.
Thank you, Richard. As always, an amazing presentation.
Hey, Callie, you're muted.
Sorry, I hit that like 3 times. I must have unmuted and then remuted myself. Apologies, everybody. Just wanted to remind everybody really quickly that within that chat bubble, if you can see the chat bubble in your Zoom bar, there is a PDF document with all of the links that Richard had just previously shared in his entire presentation. But in addition to it being in the chat, we will also send it out with the recording links. So everything will be in one place for you. We definitely want it to be kind of follow-up material for you, as well as reference material. So look to your email in a couple of days. If you didn't download that particular PDF document, we'll make sure that you get it in an email. So obviously today is the day. We want to talk about the WQRF Contaminant Occurrence Map Project. Yay! Richard, do you mind advancing to the next slide? So, you know, every good celebration, if you can hit the bottom play bar, every good celebration does need a little bit of celebratory extravaganza. So this particular celebration requires fireworks. It doesn't look like it's playing, but that's okay. That's supposed to be fireworks. Yay us, we did it. So we'll advance to the next slide. I think, there it is. There it is. So we're very excited to finally announce that the WQRF Contaminant Map is officially available to you. If you actually go to our website, which is WQRF.org, there are lots of places you can actually access the map. So if you go to WQRF.org and you check on the research link, there is a link to get to the map page. Additionally, if you're a water treatment professional, as Richard just mentioned to you, we do have the WQRF Toolbox page. So if you were to go to the website, WQRF.org, if you look under data tools, there is everything listed out for you if you're a water treatment professional, in addition to links to the actual map itself. So what I wanted to do today is just really quickly kind of walk you through how the map actually works. If you could advance to the next slide really quickly, that'd be great. So a couple fun facts about the WQRF database that actually feeds the map. So the life before the map was actually all about the data. So this started as a data project for contaminant occurrence throughout the United States back in 2018. And part of you know, taking a look at all of that data was the visualization of the data, and that's kind of what took form in the WQRF map, the first version. So if you recall, you were able to kind of see contaminant occurrence throughout the United States, kind of big picture. A lot of the data that has been provided was collected by our research partners at Corona Environmental. It is state-provided data. We now have 131 million points of data after 3 collection attempts, and there are 183 contaminants in total within our database. Next slide. Additionally, now that we have all of this great data, we decided that we wanted to maybe take a different look at the data and provide a more localized look for people to see what's in their water nearest to them. So as you'll see here, the data, once we kind of get into the actual application itself, we've selected 16 common contaminants that you'll be able to see, and the map actually defaults to that. And additionally, you'll have the chance to toggle into PFAS compounds. So you can take a look at either one. Next slide. So this is kind of what you'll see once you get into the map application itself. We've decided we wanted to tell the story of the data. There's a lot to be told, especially considering that most of us are on municipal water, and municipal water serves 88% of the entire US population. So once you get into the map application, this will be the first screen you see. Next slide. And then we also kind of tell the story of the data. So what we did was we filtered, pardon the water pun, we filtered the data so that we're focusing really primarily on what would be considered residential water and what is considered finished water. So technically the water that's coming to you directly from the tap. Next slide. And then across the top, you'll actually be able to see, if you see across the top, you'll see the finished water, common contaminants, PFAS, forever chemicals, and contaminant mapping tool. Those are all live links. So as you're walking through the story the first time, I definitely encourage you to do it because, again, the story helps to tell the story of the data. But then you also have the ability to use those live links to get to specific places within the mapping tool. We would be remiss, obviously, if we didn't call out the hard work and dedication of the USGS, and we're especially grateful to the USGS Drinking Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Science team for their collaboration on this map. They've been working on a PFAS reconnaissance project since 2016, and all of that data is actually available to you within our mapping tool as well. And we'll get to that in a second. But again, special thanks to USGS for the sharing of their data. Next slide. So once you've finally gotten into the contaminant mapping tool, you have a couple of options here. As you'll see in the top left, you can find by zip code if you're interested in doing that. Again, if you're a first timer to the map, I would definitely encourage you to use all of the selection options available to you on the left. But I also wanted to call out, as I mentioned earlier, those two top buttons. The map does default to show common contaminants. You can change it by clicking the button on the right that says show PFAS contaminants. So once you've populated all of your information, that's where you would go back to kind of toggle back and forth between the common contaminants as well as the PFAS contaminants. Next slide. One important thing to note that I did want to call out here really quickly is that, as you'll see here on the left, I like doing it this way myself because I find the mapping tool to be very interesting to use. So I typically will type in the state that I'm interested in looking at. So I typed in, as you can see here in the screenshot, Illinois. Just by virtue of typing it in does not mean that you have selected that. The map doesn't know what to do with it once you've just typed in the word Illinois. So you do actually need to go to that drop down below where you've just typed in whatever state you're wanting to look at. And you do actually need to select it. Once you've selected the state, you'll see that it kind of renders a little outline around that particular state. And that means you have actually selected it. Next slide. Once it's selected, it'll actually draw a boundary around the entire state that you want to see. And the map application should actually zoom into that particular state. Next slide. And then from there, you'll be able to kind of drill down even further. So again, you can go specifically to county boundaries. So I selected mine. And then below that, I went down to the water system and I selected my water system from there. Now, let's say, for example, you live in a county that crosses state lines. And you know exactly what you're looking for at this point because you're probably fairly familiar with what you're looking at. You can actually work within the map itself. So if you wanted to select a data point, if you know, again, where you're looking within the map and you want specifically that water system, you can actually pick that water system and that will also populate the data for you. Next slide. As you can see here, I went through the whole process. I picked my county, I picked my water system. From there, you'll be able to see a little bit of additional information on, for example, population served and the water source. The other little tip and trick I wanted to highlight here, if you see in the upper right corner, there's a little box that you can actually expand to full screen. It does make navigating this web page a little bit easier. Another thing I do want to note here really quickly is that there's an outside scroll bar and an inside scroll bar. You'll kind of see that inside scroll bar very near where you would expand the screen. Once you've selected all of the information that you're interested in looking at, you'll use that inside scroll bar to actually scroll down to see the contaminants in your area. Next slide. And here we are. So again, I've selected all of the specifics that I'm interested in seeing. I've selected my particular water system. I've used that inside scroll bar right there and I've scrolled down and now you can see all 16 of the common contaminants. If there is data for that water system, you'll be able to see it here. Additionally, if you were to select one of those particular, we call them information cards. So if you were to click on a card, there's information specific to that contaminant on the back side of the card. Next slide. And then again, if you chose to look at PFAS contamination, so obviously we were just looking at the common contaminants. If you chose to look at PFAS and you were interested in seeing the USGS PFAS reconnaissance project, here is the button on the upper right that you would check, toggle on, and then you'll be able to see any PFAS reconnaissance data. Those all will render within the map with those little yellow triangles. If you were to actually interact with the little yellow triangle, if you were to click on it, there's going to be some very specific PFAS data specific to testing from the USGS project. Next slide. And then as you can see here, we've got some PFAS specific data. I believe this was from the city of Phoenix, Arizona. A lot of that PFAS data that you'll see render on these cards, the information cards, is specific to the UCMR 5 collection. Next slide. And that's it. We have 2 minutes to spare. So a couple of things I did want to mention really quickly, and obviously we'll take some questions if there are any, but there's a lot of tools, again, WQRF.org, specific to the map. So I would encourage you to go there, walk through it, use it. Any questions that you might have that, are personal to you, or, if you're interested in having kind of a little training session, feel free to reach out. It's foundation@WQRF.org. Additionally, there is also a training video on our website underneath kind of the map information on the research page. Again, all of that information will be kind of populated in that follow-up email along with the recording of this entire webinar for you to use and reference and share out with teams. And also want to call out any unanswered questions. Please feel free to direct your question directly to foundation@WQRF.org, and we will get back to you. All right, Kayla, do we have time for any questions? I see a couple here. Okay, Richard, really quickly. Many of the emerging contaminants that are regulated in the PPB or PPT are concentrated in waste streams. As you can see, I'm having a hard time reading this, with RO and membrane technology. How is this being addressed?
Yeah, so currently the EPA with the PFAS MCL has not, they do not have a regulation on that as EPA. That's a work in progress. So when it comes to waste stream for undersink RO, that is not being regulated as part of the current PFAS MCL. But that is a work in progress, and certain states are taking a look at that individually, but federally, there's nothing that I'm aware of.
Okay. Apologies, I am going to have to cut the Q&A short, but whatever we don't finish today, again, we'll try and answer within that follow-up email. Appreciate everybody for hopping on today. A couple of things really quickly. If you are trying to claim credit, WQA certification credit, there will be some additional information sent to you in a follow-up email. Additional credit will be optional if you complete a short quiz, so be on the lookout for an email from the certification team. Additionally, want to call out our next session for summer school happens Tuesday, June 18th at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. It is the future of PFAS. We will be featuring 2 speakers from the EPA, as well as someone from the destruction technology space, easy for me to say, as well as someone from the industry who will speak about sustainability. So we're very excited about that. Look to your email for additional information. And again, any questions, feel free to reach out to foundation@WQRF.org. Thank you so much for joining us today, Richard. Our thanks to you for a great presentation. Bravo. And everyone, enjoy what is the beginning of summer, and we hope to see you on June 18th. Thanks so much.